Hello, this is Cindy Jo from Abnormal Arts and Giddy Bird Events. Today I'm going to show you how to make this personal protective face mask that you can wear to the grocery store or wherever, whenever you're around people, hopefully 6 feet away or more. So let's get to it. This is the side that faces towards the world. The pleats go downwards. The reason the pleats go downwards is because you don't want things falling from the sky into your pleats and gathering in there. This is the side that goes against your face. You want the same side to go against your face every time you wear this mask. Therefore, we made the inside one color and the outside another color. We also put a mark on the inside that says inside, a little bit easier to remember than a color. There is a top side, which indicated with an arrow. The reason I did that is because I made this mask for somebody else who may not know which side is the top from the bottom. So this has a wire inside, and that's for forming around the bridge of your nose as such. It also has another feature. If you stretch out the pleats a little bit, you can put another protective layer of some sort in there, another piece of a fabric material or a piece of non-woven interfacing, which you can get at a sewing store, or a HEPA filtration paper of some sort. This has elastic for a reason. Initially, when I was making these masks, I was putting elastic around the entire ear section. And I was finding that people were saying that the elastic was either a little too tight or a little bit too loose for them. And so I had to keep on tweaking it. And sometimes I would get the opposite reaction from them, so it was never working. So what I decided to do is use a little tiny loop of elastic in each corner, and then you can tie your tying device onto it. It serves many purposes. Elastic is hard to find right now because a lot of people are making these masks. So you can utilize as little elastic as possible on one mask so you can get more masks out of that length of elastic that you have laying around your house somewhere. Another reason for the elastic is when you tie this around your head, it'll stay on your head because it has that little bit of give to it. So you can tie it tighter and it'll stay on your head as opposed to falling off your head, which is a great feature, I think. So this is your supply list. Scissors. Permanent magic marker. The reason is because it's permanent, and permanent markers are made from alcohol inks, which will not contaminate your fabric. A pen, that is for making your templates if you choose to make more than one mask for, let's say you have a family, you want to make some for them. Wire cutters. Pliers of some sort. Cotton thread for your sewing machine, unless you're making these by hand. Bobbin thread. Both are cotton. Elastic. This is 1/4 of an inch wide. You can also use 3/8 of an inch wide. This is 1.5 inches long. You will need 4 of them. Paper clips, 6 of them. Or binding clips from an office store. I prefer them over paper clips. You will need 6 of those. Plastic coated wire. The reason you want plastic coated wire is because this is going to be the wire that's going to be between the layers of fabric, and it's going to go over the bridge of your nose. I'm using 20 gauge. The reason why is because 20 gauge is between too thin and too thick. The lower the number, the thicker the wire. The higher the number, the thinner the wire. So this is a 20 gauge. You want something that's going to keep its shape, but not be so hard to bend. There are different styles. This came from the flower arranging section of a craft store. Same place, different section of the craft store. This is a measuring device. Most of us have one of these. This is called a ruler. LOL. String, cotton, or ribbon. You're going to need 4 pieces. This is to tie around your head. You can also use something called cotton twill tape, a TWILL, or you can use bias tape, which is something you can actually make at home from the cotton fabric that you're going to use. You're going to use a high thread count. The higher the thread count, the more rigid and protective the fabric is going to be. You're going to want 2 colors or 2 patterns. The reason is because you want to be able to use one side for the outside of the mask and the other for the inside of the mask. You always want to use the same side of the mask against your face, so you're not breathing in, dirty particles from the outside world. A good place to get your fabric is from the bedding department at a store, because you can get a high high thread count fabric, which it'll say right on the packaging. And you get a lot more fabric for your money as opposed to going to a fabric store and buying it that way. You are also going to need cardboard if you decide to make more than one mask, because it's just quicker to cut your fabric if you have templates. These are called templates. You can get cardboard from a family size cereal box that'll give you enough to make both sizes of this template. You're also going to need an iron. You're going to use a dry iron. You're not going to use the steam setting of your iron. The reason why is because a lot of people don't iron all the time, including myself. I don't like it at all. But if you have water in the reservoir of your iron and it's been sitting there for a while, it can go rancid, and it can cause calcium deposits to squirt out of your iron, and we don't want any sort of contamination on our fabric. So use a dry setting. Make sure that the sole plate, this is called the sole plate, make sure that the sole plate is clean and free from any fusible webbing or anything you've used on another sewing project. You want your iron to be set at the linen setting, which is a little hotter than the cotton setting. This is a bottle of distilled water, which we're going to use to spray our fabric and then iron it. Let's get to it. Using your scissors and a pen and your measuring device and your cardboard, you are going to cut your templates as such. You're going to cut one template 9 inches wide by 9 inches long. You're going to cut the other template 9 inches wide by 10 inches long. The O stands for outside, which means this will be the outside of your mask facing towards the world. The I stands for inside of your mask, the part that goes against your mouth and your nose. Using my templates, I've already cut 2 pieces of fabric. The inside with one pattern or one color, and the outside with another pattern or another color. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to spray with our distilled water, and having our iron on the linen setting, iron your fabric. 2 reasons: it makes it nice and flat and easy to sew. Another reason, it kills a lot of things that are on it, if there's anything on your fabric. But hopefully you're using a nice new sheet. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put right sides together. Right side means the side that has more color. Like for instance, this is the wrong side. It has more this has more color than this side. Same with this one. More color, less color. So this is the right side. We're going to put right sides together as such. You're going to put the small piece of fabric or the inside fabric over the long piece of fabric or the outside fabric. So you have your inside fabric and your outside fabric. Now what we're going to do, excuse me, we're going to sew 3 inches, stop, leave a gap of 3 inches, and then we're going to start sewing again another 3 inches. So I'm at my sewing machine. I'm going to try to do this in one take because I don't want to keep messing things up and have to cut fabric over and over so everybody understands what I'm doing. So I've got my stitch length set to 2.5. You can actually go as low as like 1.5 to 2. Stitch width at 0. That means it's just going to sew a straight line all the way down without doing a zigzag. When I start a new project, I like to take 2 pieces of fabric that are of the same style as in weight as the fabric I'm going to be using for my project. I take 2 scrap pieces and start to sew, just so I know that my stitch length and everything is looking pretty good. I'm going to reverse, lock my stitches, and I'm just going to bring it up. And then I'm going to cut my threads and check to see how it looks, and it looks pretty good. So I can go ahead and sew. I've used binding clips to just secure my fabric. I mean, you don't even need them really. This is a short run. I'm going to just put my fabric right next to the edge of the presser foot. That just makes for a nice, clean, crisp, straight line. Put my presser foot down. My needle is going to go down and I just start sewing, following that presser foot line. Now I'm going to go in reverse, and that is to lock my threads. I normally try to use a matching thread, but right now I'm just using red so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm just going to go down, I'm going to release my clip, and I'm going to eyeball this to about 3 inches. And then when I stop, I'm going to reverse again to lock my stitches, move forward to the end of that line, and then lift up my needle and my presser foot. And I'm going to go down, eyeball about 3 inches, leave that open. Put my presser foot down, begin to sew again. Reverse to lock my stitches, move forward again, remove my clip or paper clip, whatever you prefer, go all the way down, and then I'm going to reverse to lock my stitches, and then go off my fabric, and then cut my thread. If you don't have a handy dandy thread cutter, then use your scissors. We're gonna cut this thread in the middle here. I'm just gonna rip it because I don't have my scissors next to me, which I always should have, but I don't. And we're gonna go back over to the ironing board. I'm back at the ironing board now. One thing I forgot to put on the supply list is an ironing board. Okay, so we are going to cut our threads that are sticking out, and you're going to turn it over too, and you're going to cut those threads as well. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our fabric. This is the right side, wrong side. We want the wrong side up. And what we're going to do is we're going to finger press that seam. What that means is you're going to take your fingers and you're going to open it up and just press with friction. And that keeps it open. And you're going to do that all the way down. As such. And you have that gap right there, that 3-inch gap. There's a reason for that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to spray with our distilled water. And we're going to press that seam open on both sides. And don't burn yourself. I've done it before. It hurts. And then we're going to come to the center and press that open. Now we're going to go back to the sewing machine, and on the side of your fabric, on the fabric that is shorter than the other fabric, we are going to sew a seam on the shorter fabric at the top. Just sew it right along there. Not on this side, but right along this edge right there. And I'll be back. On the shorter fabric, you're going to sew a seam. I'm just sewing it right in the center of this selvage. So I'm going to go forward. I'm going to go in reverse and lock my thread. Go forward again. Just sew all the way down. And then I'm going to go in reverse, lock my threads in place, and then sew off of my fabric. Lift my presser foot up, pull the fabric out, cut my threads. And that's how it looks. You just have that line of thread right there. We're going to put the right sides together until they meet at the end as such. Line them up. Put a couple clips on. I'm just going to sew a line all the way down. Move my little clip. It's about 1/4 of an inch off of the edge. So I'm just using the side of the presser foot as a guide to sew all the way down. Start sewing. Back up. Sew all the way down. I'm surprised my dogs haven't barked yet. They like to bark a lot. Which is okay, they're dogs, right? Remove my clip. All the way down. Reverse. Roll back all the way down. Clip my threads. So this is what you have. There's your little opening at the top, and at the bottom it's been sewn all the way down. The next step is to go to the side that does not have an opening, and you're going to start from the top and you're going to smooth it down, and you're going to make a crease at the bottom. And you're going to go to the other side and you're going to start from the top and you're going to smooth it down to the bottom and make a little crease. Then we're going to put our elastic in there. What you want to do is fold your elastic in half, and you're going to put it loop side in at the very top of your seam. As such. You're going to leave just a little tiny bit hanging out, and we're going to start to sew. And as long as you are sewing those two sides together, I would say, 1/4 of an inch off the edge, then you're good. Just start sewing. Over the elastic, back stitch, all the way to the end, and then you're going to go forward again. Just keep that fabric lined up with that presser foot right there. Go all the way to the end almost. So you've got a couple inches left. Take another piece. Loop side in to the fabric. All the way to the end. And then you're going to keep sewing over the elastic. Reverse your machine over the elastic again, and then go forward off of your fabric. Press your foot up, pull your tail out, cut the end of your thread. We're going to do the same side, or we're going to do the same thing to the other side that doesn't have elastic. We always want to start sewing from the end that does not have the opening. Loop side in your fabric. Keep a little tiny tail hanging out. Press your foot down, start to sew. Back stitch. Forward. Leave an inch or two. Take your last piece of elastic, loop side in the fabric, towards the fabric. Leave a little bit hanging out. Oops, let's try that again. It's not even. Perfectly in half. Loop side in. Leave a tiny tail hanging out. Go over. Sew back thread. I'm sorry, sew backwards. And then off of your fabric. And like I said, this is not in any way perfect. I'm just trying to get it done as quickly as I can just to show you how it's done. So we're back at our ironing board. Gonna cut our threads. Any threads that are hanging out, just give them a little cut. Make sure you cut the threads on the other side as well. So there you have it so far. We have our elastic sticking at the ends of our elastic is sticking out a little bit. The next step is to turn this inside out. So with that opening, you're going to turn your fabric right side out. Sorry, right side out. So you have the really vibrant side of your fabric facing out towards you. You should have that loop of elastic sticking out. Pull out your corners real good. There. So we have our elastic sticking out. We have our opening at the top. Once the shorter side of the fabric is sewn at the top, and we still have the long side of the fabric not sewn. Okay, there's a reason for that. So let's put it back the way it was. Fold it in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to wet down our fabric with our distilled water. Make sure that's top is folded in, and we're going to come over and press. Don't worry about going over that elastic with your iron. It's not going to hurt your elastic. Okay. Put your iron back. Flip it over. Do the same thing to the other side. You're going to have some steam coming up. That's what you want. Get rid of your little thread sticking out. Okay. Next up, let's move that aside. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of our plastic coated wire and we're going to cut about 6 inches off with our pliers. You may be wondering why. I'm just going to eyeball it, but you can use your handy dandy ruler if you'd like to. You may be wondering why I chose plastic covered wire as opposed to just regular wire that's exposed to the elements. Why? Because wire can rust. So that's why we want the plastic coated wire. You certainly don't want to wash this and find out that it's starting to oxidize and then miscolor your fabric. We also don't want the wire to disintegrate over time. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to curl the ends with our pliers as such. The reason for this is because we don't want a blunt end of wire because it can poke out of your fabric. So we don't want that. The next thing you're going to do when you get that little loop is you're going to flatten it. And with the magic of television, I already have one here that is flat. So there you have that. Both your edges are both flat. You're going to take that wire and you're going to put it inside that opening and you're going to run it down to the end and you're going to put it all the way in and then you're going to cinch it to the center. So you have, so the ends of the wire, here's one end, there's the other end, and you have just about the same amount of fabric on each side of those ends. So you're going to keep it all the way up there at the top and you're going to sew, backstitch, sew, turn, sew all the way around it, turn, sew, backstitch, and sew off your fabric. Let's go do that. We're back at our machine and we're going to take these clips and we're going to hold our wire in place. The reason I don't use pins is because pins just create more puncture wounds on the fabric. Now we have to create some puncture wounds in the fabric with our needle, of course, but the holes are being filled with thread. As much as they possibly can be anyways. So it's always best if you're creating a face mask in order to not get exposed to things, you want as least amount of holes in the fabric as possible. So we're using our clips to hold our wire in place. So now I'm going to find the end of the wire and we're going to put the end of the wire next to that little dot where our needle is. Lower our presser foot and you're going to sew slowly just for a few stitches and then you're going to back stitch and then you're going to sew a stitch or two forward. Make sure your needle is in the thread and then you're going to pivot. You're going to turn that needle. I'm sorry, you're going to turn that fabric. We're going to remove our first clip and we're going to sew forward and we're going to try to get as close to that wire as we can. That's why I'm sewing slowly. We don't want to break any needles by sewing into the wire itself. When it comes to a needle in your sewing machine, you want to use a sharp needle. And you're going to find the end of that wire. Make sure you're a little bit past it so you're not going to puncture it when you turn. Make sure your needle is down in the fabric, and then you're going to turn your fabric and you're going to sew towards the end a couple stitches, and then you're going to reverse a couple stitches, and then you're going to go forward again until you're off of your fabric completely. Raise your presser foot, pull out your fabric, cut your thread. We're back at our ironing board. Now we're going to make our pleats. Since this is the side of the mask that goes against your face, you want the pleats to be going upwards. So we're going to go about 3/4 of the way down with our fingers, and we're going to make our first pleat right in the center. And you're going to take your clips, put them in the sides. Each pleat is going to be about approximately 1 inch. And you're going to split that in half and then make another pleat. It may take you a few times to get this right. Believe me, it did me, that's for sure. Clip it together. You're going to have 3 pleats. And then go up here and make another pleat and kind of bring that fold line to where that green fabric is. And then clip it together. And clip that side together. Okay, now we're going to go grab our water, spray, and press it. That's going to make those pleats nice and crisp. And then you're going to flip it over, spray, do the same thing on the other side. Just makes those nice and crisp. There. Now we're going to go to our sewing machine and we're going to sew straight down on each side. We're just going to sew a line straight down there and the same thing over there. I'm going to remove my first clip and press your foot down, start to sew, and then you're going to put your sewing machine in reverse. And then go forward. You may have to lift up your presser foot to get that fabric under there because it's bulky, and then put it back down when it's over that lump. And just sew. You're sewing about 1/4 of an inch off the edge. Remove your next clip. Keep going. And then you're going to sew to the end and reverse to lock your stitches, and then sew off your fabric. Press your foot up, pull, and then cut your threads. Pull your tail out so you have enough thread to start your next line of sewing. You're going to do the other side now. Go in reverse to lock your stitches, and then go forward, off your fabric, press your foot up. Now there's one more thing left to do. Let's go back over to our ironing board. We're back at the ironing board, and I've already put my ribbons on 3 corners. The last one I have to do is the 4th corner right here. I am just using ribbon, and you'll see there is a funny shape that I've cut into that. I'm going to show you how I did that and why. So you're going to fold your ribbon in half, and you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut like that. and then it's going to make that shape. The reason why I made that shape is because this is like a polyester style ribbon. It's got a slicker surface to it, so it has a tendency to fray at the end. And that shape, believe it or not, helps it prevent it from fraying. Another thing you can do to prevent fraying is put a little dot of super glue at the end. Another thing you can do is buy something called fray check, and that will prevent it from unraveling as well and fraying. Another thing you can do is, instead of using this ribbon, you can use shoelace, use that cotton string I showed you earlier, and we're going to put the end into our elastic, and we're going to tie it not just once but twice. The reason why you want to tie it twice is a precautionary measure, because if it unties itself, you have that much more of a chance to expose yourself to the elements. And the final thing that we've done here is we used our permanent marker and we just put the word in the mask. That just means that whoever is wearing this mask, if it's not you, you can tell them look for the word in, or you can write down face and they can say look for the word face. That way they know that side of the mask goes against their face always. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I helped everybody out, and by no means is this a perfect video. It's my first instructional video, so I know I can ramble sometimes. I'm sorry. I do that in real life too. Ask my dogs. Anyways, from Giddy Bird Events and Abnormal Arts, have a heart, stay apart. Everybody be safe. Bye-bye.